Aloha. Welcome to Return on Wellness, a web series brought to you by Olympian Meeting.
Hi, welcome to this episode of Return on Wellness, sponsored by Olympian Meeting. They're paying the bills, so I got to give them a shout out.
Thanks, Olympia.
With that, I'm here today with Shea, and we're going to jump in, and today we're going to talk about really how wellness and fitness can help make you better at your job, which I think we're all trying to be better at our jobs on a regular basis. So, Shea, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and a little bit of background for people who don't know who you are.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Shea. It's nice to be here with all of you. And he asked why I go by Shea because my Instagram is Krisi.Shea, which is my legal name, Krisi Shea Williams. So
Did you just plug your Instagram within?
I did. I already plugged it.
Good work. It was like record time.
But it's interesting. It's funny. I never thought of it. I assigned that when I was, 14 years old. And at that time, anyone on Instagram I already knew in real life. They knew my name was Shea. And then as I progress through my career and I meet different people, a lot of people I meet on Instagram before I meet in person. And then when I meet them in person, they're like, Krisi. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's me. Hey. And I'm like, so it's actually Shea, which is my legal middle name and the name I've always gone by.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your LinkedIn, because this is professional.
You know, I think it says Krisi and then Shea and those little asterisks.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Williams.
Cool.
Yeah, I
All
always
right.
use my full name on everything.
All right. So if you see her, say, hey, Shea.
Hey, Shea. It's
Because
Shea.
she
What's
will
up,
not
Shea?
reply
like
to Krisi.
Shea Butter, Shea Stadium. Yeah. Spelled
right.
the same and everything.
Perfect. And what is your current role?
Okay, so right now I am the director of community for a brand called Podium.
Oh, that's quite fitting that we're meeting in the Community Factories facilities. Thank you, Liz and Nicole, for hosting us. Okay, what does that mean? What is your actual job? Director of community. Everyone's talking about community, clearly. What does that mean in your world?
Yeah, so I'll back up a little bit to explain a little about Podium so you understand. So Podium was launched on September 1st of 21, primarily the CrossFit space. And so we are a supplement nutrition brand. And our goal in building product is to increase performance. And so right now we have 3 flagship products that one is a pre-workout, one is a hydration and BCA, and then one is a whey protein. And so some of our founders are really well known in the CrossFit space. If you're listening and you know CrossFit, you've probably heard of Podium before, so excited to have you here. And when this brand was being developed, one of the 4 owners is a friend of mine. And when we started talking about Podium and the direction it was going, there's a huge emphasis on community at play here within our brand and who we want to be for the CrossFit space. My experience prior to Lululemon, that's where I came from. My experience prior to Podium was Lululemon. I was a store manager for 2 different stores over the course of 7 years. And really what I was known for at Lulu was my ability to bring people together to host events and curate experiences for people to experience the Lululemon brand in a unique way. And that was really a big deal for us as a company. Even now is how do we create experiences that are meaningful and memorable for people? And so the 7 years that I spent doing that at Lululemon really is what set me up for the job that I'm doing now at Podium, which is, oh gosh, I wear a lot of hats, but at the end of the day, my primary role is how does the Podium brand have a greater impact on right now the CrossFit space, and then as we grow, eventually we'll be targeting different segments of CrossFit, or of the fitness community. And right now it's just all about that niche. We know CrossFit is our niche. It's where our founders came from. It's where a lot of us on staff came from. We know the value of the CrossFit and fitness community when it comes to authenticity in a brand. And so for us, creating a community, creating that tribe around our product is part of what makes us successful and what makes the brand more than just another supplement on the shelf.
Got it. Okay. You said a lot of things that sparked a lot of thoughts in my head. It's really interesting. So we talked about it a little bit before. A book I'm reading right now, and I've mentioned it previously, is called Spark. And one of the things they talked about is in mice, they noticed cortisol increases simply from removing them from a community. and you start thinking and isolating them. And I think we all can appreciate that, given what we all just went through for a couple years.
Yeah.
Some of us could handle it better than others. Some of us realized we really dislike people in general. But it was interesting. So it's great to hear that you guys are taking that approach. The other part of the book is that fitness and movement helps reduce those cortisol levels. And CrossFit, a big thing about CrossFit is community. It's group workouts. You work out with a group of people. So it's a very anti-cortisol league of people because you're creating community and you're moving, which are the two things that they're finding are substantial in reducing cortisol levels, which is exciting. Okay. All right. So how big is your overall, like how many full-time employees are actually at Podium? Are you allowed to say? I know you're private.
6. There's 6 of us full-time.
6.
And that's not including 3 of the 4 founders.
Right. So, okay, you're sub 10 people running this company.
A massive company.
Yes. And so I just wanted to contextualize how many events and how many hats you have to wear.
Yeah.
Because there's so much going on, especially when you're running, because community at that level is brand, it's events, it's
social.
Pretty much anything that someone interacts with the Podium brand, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So with that, now something special about Shea is because I have an opinion, just like everyone. I have deemed Shea the fittest event professional in the world. Everyone knows I make this audacious claim that I am the 4-time fittest male event professional.
Yes, you are.
Or I claim to be.
It's not audacious. I think there's a whole division that should be dedicated to it.
Now you're just pandering. But the reason where that comes from, for those of you that don't know, a few years ago, 4 years ago to be exact, CrossFit started introducing, they have this competition called the Open. And the Open is a online qualifier. It used to be very in person in 2019 and 2018, and it has evolved to go online in the last few years for obvious reasons. But they introduced occupational hashtags, and hashtag EventProf is it's a big thing on Twitter. It's a big thing on LinkedIn. It's a big thing on social. And the first 2 years, I was the uncontested fittest event professional, period, because I was the only one who used the hashtag. So, oh well. That has grown substantially, which is exciting. But I don't think I don't know if you had it on did you participate in the Open? Because do they do it open for teams?
Yes. So if you intend to compete in the competitive circuit of CrossFit, it starts with the Open. And so for me, I was on a team, and everyone on the team has to go through the Open process, and you're scored individually. And then at the end of the Open, you declare a team, and then based on your scores, you're ranked worldwide and regionally, and that determines if you move on to the next stage of the competitive series, which is the quarterfinals. Again, an online process. And then from the quarterfinals, and there's all kinds of like rules in place. There's videos. You've got to have certified judges that take a course. People have to approve your videos, saying you did the workout right, followed the movement standards. And then from the quarterfinals, you advance to the semifinals, which are in-person events. There's 7 of them worldwide, and it's based on country. It changes a little bit every year. That's why I'm hesitating.
Yeah, it's like Americas or North America or South.
So last year there was 4 in North America. This year there's actually only going to be 2. But then you've got Europe, you have Africa, Oceania, which is, I'll show you, New Zealand, Asia, and a few other.
But you still have to qualify on an individual level. Essentially.
Yes, essentially.
Okay, fair enough. But did you use the EventProf? So okay,
I didn't. At that point, we had not met yet. That was in March of last year. And while I've always been in the event sector, I've never considered myself an event professional for no reason other than maybe I wasn't just.
You just hadn't heard the term.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Well, ignorance is bliss for my title. So
you got lucky last year.
Yeah, so with that, the good news is I'm still fittest male.
Yes.
Thank goodness. Because I was not fittest, because there was a girl who's a wedding planner in, I want to say, Minneapolis, St. Paul, who whooped my butt.
Crushed it.
just killed it. And I was like, of course, not surprised that a woman beat me. There's
some really strong women in CrossFit.
You know what? It's par for the course. We were just having this discussion a little earlier for the CrossFitters that are listening. Everyone's arguing about Matt or Rich, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's Tia, like hands down. Like who cares? Like she's 6-time individual all-time champ, one more by herself than anyone else. So she's the GOAT, really. But anyways, we're totally getting down the CrossFit wormhole. Okay, so we'll dig into the open a little bit for people that don't know what that is. But I was really excited to see that hashtag grow. So that's kind of where that started. Is I put it in. And they had like fittest firefighter, fittest police officer, blah, 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 like a lot of the first responders, because that's who have really helped build the CrossFit community. But one of the things I wanted to see is the people in our industry start taking better care of themselves and take advantage of the fact that CrossFit is really built around constantly varied movement. It's not one particular thing. It's something that you can always find a way to do. You don't have to have certain equipment to get a workout in. So that's one of the things that really appealed to me, is because then I could take it on the road when we travel like we do. You're on the road right now. I happen to be at home, so to speak. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the open so that people know what it is when we reference it, because I think it's something that's really exciting. It's for everyone. And a lot of people sometimes are too afraid to just take that first step, because they're like, oh, well, I need to get in shape before I do it, or I need to blah, blah, blah. You just need to take the first step.
Yeah.
So what is the open in your words?
Yeah, I think I have to backtrack a little bit for anyone who isn't currently in the CrossFit world to understand why CrossFit is for everyone. CrossFit, when it originated years ago, it developed a pretty bad reputation based on the very low barriers to entry to get into the sport. You could go take a weekend course, and now you're a certified CrossFit coach. Maybe, and someone who had never done fitness in their entire life could do that. So the barrier to entry was low.
Can I pause you there for
please.
a second? So that's the first fight I ever had with my wife. I worked at 24 Hour Fitness at corporate. She was a former CrossFit gym owner and coach, and she was trying to convince me to do CrossFit. And I was like,
no,
absolutely not. That shit is reckless. People get hurt all the time and blah, blah, blah. And then she showed me a video of a comp, and I didn't know what the term no rep meant. And I'm like, that doesn't count. Like that's poor form. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. It was like burpee over bar, and they weren't standing all the way up. And I didn't understand what the movement standards were. We got into this blowout fight over the most ridiculous thing ever. Yeah. But I had that preconceived notion because, yes, I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah.
It was the barrier to entry. It was a money grab for the people who were like, oh, I can spend $1,000 and open a CrossFit gym. Great.
Cool. Yeah.
So please continue. Sorry.
So I think over the years, of course, CrossFit as an organization is pretty young, and they've grown, and as a result, the standards have grown. And really, I would say it's really only been, in my opinion, the past 3 years that the sport has really gone a long way in getting accreditation. And a lot of that, with the craziness of the pandemic, a lot of gyms had to shut down. And the ones that survived and thrived through the pandemic were the gym owners who had experience, truly cared about their people, and found ways to create a culture and community that was thriving outside of being under a physical roof together. And so this post-pandemic, this is my personal opinion, this post-pandemic CrossFit...
You will be judged. It's the internet.
This post-pandemic CrossFit culture, I think it's enhanced tenfold because people realize the value, like you said, in coming together. And you've got coaches who have really taken the sport seriously and set high standards for movement. I always tell people, again, this is my personal opinion, I tell people that the best way to judge a CrossFit gym is their onboarding program. If a CrossFit gym lets some person off the street who's never done CrossFit before hop into or drop into a class, so we say, it's not where you want to be, because if you've never done CrossFit before and you jump into a class not understanding good movement, chances of getting hurt are pretty high. And that happened early on in the sport a lot, and why we got such a bad reputation. Segue to now, the standards have increased. In order to do kipping pull-ups, I think some of the things we get made fun of for the most are the ways that I say we as CrossFit professionals have found to increase the amount of repetitions you're able to do under a given time. So
We'll call it
efficiency. CrossFit's all about functional performance, and so but the standards have elevated now, and if you're in a good gym, they're not going to let you I can't say the word that we use in the gym. They're not going to let you cheat the movement until you have proven, like, if you can't do 10 strict pull-ups, you should not be doing a kipping pull-up. It wears and tears on your shoulders, all these other things. And so if you're in a good CrossFit gym, which there's a ton of them out there, all the ones that are accredited through CrossFit, I would vouch for, and saying that, like, there are coaches who care about your health. That's why they're there. It's why it's not a profitable business. Owning a gym, it's hard to be profitable inside of a community in a gym space. So the people doing this care. They're there because they want to make a difference. They want to impact people's lives. And inside the CrossFit gym, you're showing up and you get to work out with 10 of your best friends. And if you're new to a community, it's a great way to meet new people, and then it's a great way to deepen relationships too. And so all of that being said, like, insert now, we're coming up on the Open, and why I think the Open is for everyone is, the CrossFitters that you see on TV at the CrossFit Games, the average person might look at that and be like, oh, I could never do that. And you're right. The people in that space are the 1% or the less than 1% of competitors who have been training for years, multiple hours a day, 7 days a week to be at that level. But everything in CrossFit is scalable. Every single movement can be brought down to, you have anyone in a class from ranges 12 to 75, and whatever the prescribed workout is, it can be modified for everyone to complete the workout within their given range of motion, their given ability, and without causing any injury or harm. And so the Open is for everyone.
I think I really appreciated the explainer videos during I think it was 2020. They did explainer videos for the Open. 2021, they did explainer videos, and they showed all the various versions. And they had some, obviously, prime athlete do one version, and then they would show someone else a little older doing that another version, and then someone else even older. I remember seeing this woman with, like, salt and pepper hair, like, picking up a water bottle. Yeah. Like, it was like a 1 gallon water bottle for squats. Yeah. Like, that's what's great about the Open is it is the term they use is scalable. Street Parking uses a term called modified. Yeah. And that's what's, and while there is a leaderboard, because some of us are type A's, myself included, thus my ridiculous claim, what I have found to be the most beneficial and that I've tracked year over year is my progress against myself. Yeah. So
you versus you.
Yes, and that's what it is year over year. Yeah. What your abilities, your weights, etc. Are you making progress? Are you getting better against yourself, against the old you? I know this last year was the first time I was able to do every workout as prescribed. Nice. And it was so exciting because every year before I would do it, but there was some movement that there's a workout that I would have to modify in order to do it. But it still gave me the opportunity to see where I was, where my abilities were. And full disclaimer, I've been working out at home with basically a set of dumbbells. And it wasn't until October of last year that I got a barbell again. So I was working with limited equipment, and I trained in my garage during the pandemic. So Street Parking is a programming. It's not actually a physical gym. We're all friends with Street Parking here. I'm a Street Parker. We met at a Street Parking event.
Street Parking is part of the Podium community.
Yes, so it's all love here. But Street Parking is basically CrossFit at home, and they do a great job of doing explainer videos and teaching people how to modify things so that you, regardless of where you are in your journey, if you're just starting or if you're advanced, you can start there. But the Open is a great opportunity to really test yourself against yourself, as well as if you're worried about how you stack up against other people or you want to challenge me.
EventProfs. Got some contenders coming at you.
Yeah, I hope so. Hopefully in my age group. I'll just keep segmenting until I can keep my title. But it's a great opportunity to just kind of see where you are overall and continue to measure yourself so that you know that you're making progress year over year.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
so you last year though got to do something that you had never done. Yeah. You were the only one of us to go. Remember those 1%ers she was talking about? She was calling herself a 1%er. You qualified well enough to be on a team to go to the CrossFit Games, and the Games is basically the CrossFit Olympics.
Yeah, that's exactly how I describe it to people.
Yeah. So what was? I'm sure you watched it plenty of time. Well, let's back up a second.
2013.
Yeah. How long have you been doing CrossFit?
Yeah, 2013.
2013. Okay, so it was 9 years you had been watching it.
Yeah.
And then you got to go and actually like be in the lock. Like, what was
sit in the bleachers next to some of my like heroes
during briefings?
During athlete briefings.
Except you got a Boz briefing, not a Castro briefing,
got a
right?
Boz briefing.
Okay.
But we got to meet Castro at that street parking event that we met at.
Yes.
So.
And we got a Castro briefing before.
And we did.
We did like
so,
this.
So I've been briefed by both.
Hike in the woods. Well, we can get into that later.
Yeah. We'll wait.
Just walk us through what that was like, because I can't imagine. It seems so far out there to me to ever get to go do that.
Yeah.
How
just talk about the process?
Like, what was it like? What did it feel like to like? You knew you were going. Yeah. Like walking in, you got to go to athlete check-in. Like there must have been a number of memories that you created throughout that weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been an avid CrossFitter since 2013, and throughout this CrossFit journey of my own, of course, there's been peaks and valleys. There's been times when I'm like head down, all in, dialed in, training to be at the top, and then there's been years where work was a priority or family had to come first for one reason or another, and my fitness would like come down a little bit. And then we made this commitment. I say we, my team of the four of us that competed together, we committed to training in July of 21. And so that was just 13 months before the games that we declared we would be competing at the games in 2022. There were no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, we knew it was going to happen, and we all made sacrifices throughout the year to ensure that we did everything in our power to be on that stage come August 2022. And so, even throughout that process, peaks and valleys, right? We spent a year together, a small group of us four. And so walking into that building that sunny day in August in Madison, Wisconsin, walking in there was surreal. It was surreal to be walking into Noble did a really great job of creating an experience. They know how to host an event. And so as an athlete, they truly created a once in a lifetime experience for me. I don't know if I will ever go back to the games, but they take you in and they have this whole locker room built out, and your name is on a plaque under your locker room, and they have all of the clothes that you get to compete throughout the weekend. I think we wound up with like 30 items of apparel to wear that's all Noble brand. I had my number on it. Had my name on some stuff. Team Density or CrossFit Overtake. Team Density was our team name. And so they curated an experience for us as athletes. And so check-in day was absolutely incredible. You walk out. I have a picture of me. It's a canvas shoe bag loaded down with, I think there was 6 pairs of shoes.
Did you need an extra suitcase to bring it all home?
Yeah, we actually had one of our friends drove from Texas to Wisconsin, and we like loaded up the back of his truck with so much stuff on the way back. So canvas shoe bag, big duffel, backpack, and all just loaded down with gear. And so talk about events. Noble, they put a lot out there and put a lot of energy into creating an experience to reward the athletes that really made it that far. And so, yeah, that was day one. The first athlete briefing, like walking in and seeing people that I've admired in the sport for the past 10 years, sitting next to them in the bleachers and just kind of looking and taking a minute, taking a pause, and really taking it all in that I was in that room and that nobody gave me that spot. Like, we busted our tail for a year and we earned our position to be there. And it was incredible. Like the whole weekend was incredible. I think one of the coolest things about CrossFit is that you don't know what you're going to get,
Right.
especially when at that level. We might find out the event sometimes hours before, maybe the night before sometimes. And so you truly, one year when I was like taking a year off of CrossFit, so to say, still training, but like our motto during that time was like, I just want to be hard to kill. I want to be fast. I want to be strong. I want to know that if anything came at me, I would be able to overcome it. And as a CrossFit mentality, you really have to have that mentality because you truly don't know what, in this case, Adrian Bosman is going to program that you're going to have. What obstacle are you going to have to overcome? So you have to be prepared for anything. And so there has to be a level of internal peace and confidence too, that you can just walk into that space knowing whatever this guy has up his sleeve, I'm ready for it and I'm prepared. Because if you're not and you let that anxiety get to you, then it's game over.
So I think this is an interesting crossroads of both athlete performance and work performance. And it also incorporates, this whole web series is called Return on Wellness, right? And I think there's some elements of wellness you probably have to take with you going into a situation like that, because after watching these athletes and then now you're in the same room sitting next to them, and for what it's worth, there were 2 teams this last year that have very big individual CrossFit names on them. Rich Froning and Katrin.
Super teams. So
they
like
call them
it.
super teams. So did you struggle with any like imposter syndrome, or like how did you calm your mind in those situations where you're like, because let's say it happened to me, even though I was putting up the numbers and everything else, I would be thinking, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like, how did I end up in this room? Because I felt that sometimes at work where I'm like, why am I the one making, like, how did I end up becoming the person who's being asked to make this decision?
Yeah.
So like, did you do anything to help with that? Or did it just kind of all come with, because you put in the dues through the semifinals and everything else, you were kind of at peace being there?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
I would say all of the above. Of course, there was a level of looking around at people who have accomplished far more in this sport that I have. And for me, I think it came more of a place of admiration for what other people have accomplished, but also my team was very close. So we still are very close. And our team captain really did a good job of, keeping us grounded, keeping us level-headed and down to earth throughout the training process. And so walking into that room, it would be easy to look around and be intimidated, or I earned my spot. I'm here just the same as they're here. We had pretty realistic expectations on like the goal, like where we wanted to finish, what we knew we were capable of. And so having those conversations as a team, I think, is what really set us all up for success. Is we knew each other's strengths, we knew each other's weaknesses, and we knew that as soon as we found out a workout, we would be able to make a game plan and how we were going to approach that workout to achieve the best result. And so, you mentioned earlier, it's you versus you, and it's the same thing on a 4-person team. Like, it's us versus the world. We are going to do our absolute best to achieve the best possible result, but we have no control over what's going on in any of the lanes beside us. There could be, anything could happen, right? Like equipment failure, a judge not holding people to the movement standards. There's tons of room for variability. And so if I would have allowed myself to get caught up in that, it's a downward spiral. And again, like game over. And so there's a level of mental stability, mental clarity goes into that stage as it would go into speaking on stage in front of a crowd. So I think that taking that time, something that we hammered as a team, is like taking that time to get clear, like get focused, do what you got to do to like reduce the noise and just focus on the task at hand.
Did you guys do anything like right before something would start, or before you took the field, or at the end of the day before you went to bed? Any meditation or anything of that nature to try to calm your mind? Because it's so much stimulus.
Yeah. We prayed before every event.
Okay.
So the 4 of us came together in a huddle, and and for every single event. And our team captain would say a prayer for peace of mind, for focus, for clarity, and in my opinion, that was helpful. For some people, I call it prayer. Maybe somebody else would call it a team meditation or a moment of clearing. I think you could look at it however you want. But we prayed, and walking away from that huddle, that was just the reestablishment of like, it's the four of us, and nobody else matters in this moment.
So you are featured in my most viewed reel of all time.
Am I?
Yes. That video of you doing 70-pound dumbbell lunges down the field.
Yeah.
Overhead.
Yes.
So she's carrying a 70-pound dumbbell overhead doing lunges down this field. It has over 10,000 views.
Oh, cool.
And so I figured I'd wait to tell you that.
Nice.
In this environment. And there's been some fun stuff gone back and forth about who's the fittest in events. And I'm like, her. Like hands down. So I thought I'd share that is a very well received video, and the comments there's a number of comments in there that are hysterical.
Okay,
like,
I'm gonna have to go check them out.
They're nothing, which is really weird. Nothing in there is mean.
Good. I love
something
that.
on the internet where no one was like, somebody said that's what they use to warm up for finger curls.
Those finger curls.
Which I was like, okay, that's not even mean. That's just ridiculous. But it's intentionally ridiculous, so all good. Okay, so what's interesting is we got to touch on a couple things across that. It's, I think one of the things a lot of event professionals were tasked with and faced with going into or during the pandemic was earning their seat at the table in the decision-making process of what events are go, no go, what's the criteria of go, no go. And it was an opportunity for a lot of event professionals to shine and up-level that they're not a party planner, but that they are a true business professional and their decisions impact the business. So I think that's kind of why I talked to a little bit to the imposter syndrome of the fact that you're in the room with sometimes people you don't think you necessarily should be, and you're like, why am I here? It was interesting to hear about that. I think you also touched a little bit on the fact that, the CrossFit Games is a giant event. There's, I think, 15,000 spectators. Then there's another probably 500 to ish on the competing. Because they
triple
have
that in volunteers, multiple stages, multiple events. The logistics are insane. The teams that run those, it's an event production.
Yes, it's like producing the Olympics. It's a big deal, and it's great to hear that they made that experience so significant and memorable for the athletes. I will say the VIP deck that I was able to get to go to, they need a little work on. So the attendee experience needs some work, but
I'll pass the feedback.
Yeah, I'm sure they call you. Okay, so with that, look, we just talked about you competing alongside the one percenters of CrossFitters. A lot of something that comes up all the time in events is that we have so much to do. We're so stressed out. We don't have the time. Yeah. I'd like to dig into how you've been able to, I'm not going to say do it all, but how you've been able to balance those two things. And then after that, and that's where this is all going, I want to talk about how important is training to your ability to do your job. So how do you find the time, like when someone wants to book an early meeting or someone wants to book a calendar invite when you're supposed to be at the gym? Like how do you protect your time?
Yeah. So training I think I have to backtrack a little bit so you understand a little bit how my brain has always worked towards this. I started early in my life. I started gymnastics when I was 2 years old. And
that's why your handstand walks are so good.
That's why I can handstand walk. So from the age of 2 till the age of 14, I was a competitive gymnast. And I would say around 4th grade is when I really started to learn what sacrifice means and prioritization. And for me at that level, growing up as a competitive gymnast, there was a choice that had to be made. I could choose to go to school and have a normal life and go to sleepovers on the weekends and hang with my friends, or I could choose to go to sleep early, wake up early, go to school, leave school early, go train. go to meets on the weekends. And so from like a young age, I learned what sacrifice meant. And I really think that that's carried forward in my adult life, and understanding what's important to me and then what I have to do to be able to achieve that goal. And I think like one of the things I really want everyone to understand who's listening to this is like, doesn't have to be that way all the time. Like life to me comes in seasons, and there are seasons of my life where I am a free bird. Like I don't have an obligation to anyone or anything, and I'm just kind of like moseying my way, just enjoying space. If you know anything about an Enneagram, I'm a type 7, and so like freedom's really important to me. Experiences, adventure, all of this stuff, but also on the other side of that, I value being grounded. I value structure. I value achievement. And so I would say this past season of my life started July of 2021 when we all agreed on this goal, and we all knew what it takes, or what it takes to get to the games. And we had to make a choice in that moment to be willing to put in the effort and dedicate the time to achieve that goal. And then life happened. My dad died like two weeks after we made this decision to start training. And so then my training got derailed an additional 6 weeks while I went through that whole process with my family. And so it wasn't really until August that I started getting into training. And then I'm in a grief battle, right? So I'm up and down, and really fortunate to have a group of teammates around me who rallied. And when I was down, they lifted me up, or they called me out and was like, now's not the time, like suck it up, we have work to do. And like I think like community and tribe in that sense is so important. If you don't have people there, one, calling you on your crap, and also like building you up when you need it, like it's going to be a lot harder to achieve anything. And then at the same time, I'm transitioning from a career at Lululemon that was, for 7 years. I don't want to say I was doing the same thing, but I knew my role. I understood my role.
You were established. You knew who to go to at this and that, and you could get things done efficiently.
So quickly, and transitioned a $4 billion company to a startup. And we started training for the games. My dad died. Like I was physically moving locations. I left a career. I started a new career, and all of this like was happening all at once. And so really, I think actually the thing that kept me grounded through all of this was the decision that we made to compete at the 2022 CrossFit Games. And so having that for me, having a goal and having a prioritization that superseded all else. Like I had conversations with my family, like this next year's going to look different. I'm going to miss birthday parties. I'm going to miss holiday events. I'm going to miss a lot of things. But the payout, the reward will be this next August when I achieve a goal that 99% of the world isn't able to achieve. And so something that has always been important to me is the side of that is goal setting. And so that really that championed the rest of the year. And so when it comes down to time, I started with Podium right after we launched that year in September, and learning a new career, learning a new role, really essentially starting from nothing in the best way. So it was just me and the CEO for about 6 months as I'm training for the games. And what I'll say about that is, as a boss, as a leader, as the founder of a company, he is an incredible human being. And I was just very clear with him from day one, like, hey, I've got this massive goal that I'm setting out to accomplish, and it's gonna show up in my work. Now, luckily for me, I say luck, like I chose this career, I chose this pathway. I'm training for the CrossFit Games and also like building a brand that targets CrossFit.
Yeah, I would say it did work out that you were. It was helpful. Working at a brand that was being started by someone. One of the founders obviously knows. He's been very vocal when he said he retired. They're like, "Why are you retiring?" And he goes, "Because I want to have a life again." Yeah, because I literally can't. The way my mind works, everything in order to win. Because he wouldn't just win; he would blow people out of the water. He would dominate. Yeah. He said every decision I made was, will this help me win the games or not? That was it. That was his only criteria for making any decision ever. He said he didn't take his wife on dates, like they didn't go do stuff. all the things because that was his goal. So fortunately, that's the guy who's helped co-founding the company you're working for.
Yeah.
So you could go to your boss and say, hey, even before you started, which hopefully you told him before you started, I'm training to go to the games. I want to go to the games. I won't know until next year if I'm actually going to go to the games, but I need to put in the work, and he at least understands that.
Well, I have to interrupt you a little bit. So you're referring to Matt Frazier, obviously.
Yes.
For anyone who doesn't know Matt Frazier, he's the 5-time CrossFit Games male division winner. He's won the games more times than any other male as an individual. And yes, while Matt is one of the 4 founders of Podium, I wouldn't say Matt's my direct boss.
Agreed. I'm just saying,
but
you're,
having that, like,
your
mentality,
CEO,
the CEO,
hearing that from the other
yeah,
side,
absolutely.
at least he's
There's
like,
a
oh, I
deep
get it.
level
You're
of
one of those.
understanding. Yeah. And you know, like, the funny part about it, like, I didn't tell Matt, I didn't tell Heber, I didn't tell Marston. Those are the Buttery Bros, as people so endearingly refer to them. None of them really knew that I was even training for the games. They knew me as the girl that Paul hired to help him run the company. And so they were so welcoming and great from day one, and supporting anything that I asked of them. And I asked a lot of them all of the time, as you have to, going into and launching a company. Right. But bringing us back a little bit to, like, the time management and the prioritization for me, and I think, like, the thing that I learned this past year that has been a practice since, like I said, I was in 4th grade. I think this past year was the best I'd ever executed it, was that in order to achieve anything meaningful and worthwhile, you have to establish a priority. And then the missing link, I think, for a lot of people is the communication of that priority. And so for me, I had to go to friends of my friend group. I will say I have this to my advantage. Like, I'm 33 years old, I'm single, I don't have kids. And so outside of, like, my chosen goals and my career, I don't have a ton of obligation at home. And so, but that's not to say that someone who has all of those things isn't able to do this. The 2 guys on our team are both married and have kids. The other girl is married and actually now starting a family. It's super exciting. And so anyone in any walk of life can do this, but there has to be a high level of communication. And so for me, it's like, I went to my family and I let them know, like, here's my goal. Here's why you're going to see less of me. But I'm the friend that travels. Most of my friends live in cities with their kids and their husbands. And so I'm in San Antonio or in Dallas or in Austin, where we're at right now, like, visiting friends. And I had to tell all of them, like, I know you're used to seeing me at your 2-year-old's birthday party, but this year, probably not going to see a lot of me. And here's why. And, you know, I think I have some of the best friends in the entire world. Every single one of them were like, that's freaking awesome. Like, go crush it. We can't wait to cheer you on. There was not 1 ounce of negativity from anyone in my life.
I'd hope not.
Yeah. But, you know, some people do.
Haters gonna hate.
And unfortunately, a lot of people deal with that from closer, like, family members, you know. I think that when it comes to high achievement, there are people in your life who don't want you to succeed. And the hard thing for some people is that sometimes those people are very close to them. And so learning to set boundaries, establish priorities, and then, like, manage your time, it's one of the hardest, but one of the most necessary things to do. So going into Podium, I just had multiple conversations with Paul, who's the CEO and one of the 4 founders, about, all right, here's my request. Like, I'm going to train from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. I'm going to work from 8 to noon. I'm going to train from noon to 1. I'm going to work from 1 to 4. And then I'm going to train from 5 to 7. Like, that was like a typical day for me. And then, you know, yeah, it was wild. It was a lot. And then, of course, there always has to be some flexibility in that too. Like, some days I would do a longer training session in one piece so that I could start work earlier because we had a meeting or this or that. But for the most part, I was able to build a schedule that worked around a schedule that was so really beneficial for work, that also helped me prioritize my training schedule. And then working with my coach as well, like, a lot of times we would have like an hour piece where it was just like, go row for an hour, go run for an hour, go do this for an hour. And I would just build that into my work day. And so that would be my lunch break. I would just go outside and run for an hour. And so to your point about Matt Frazier, like, having that little nugget in my head all the time, even the days that I didn't want to do it. And trust me, there's a lot of days I didn't want to do it. It was hard. It was draining. My body hurt. It was hard to eat. I mean, we were eating 4,000 calories. I was eating 4,000 calories a day. There were days I didn't want to do it, but having that in the back of my head of like, there's a greater purpose. Being on a team was like, the purpose is actually outside of myself. Like, while I had to want to do it for me, I also had to want to do it for the 3 other people who were on this journey with me. And so at the end of the day, I think that was the thing that like really kept me streamlined and really kept me moving forward. And then the events popped up. So the events are a part of my job too. And so again, it comes back to communication. Like, I would have to communicate with my team captain for CrossFit. Hey, like, I'm going to be out of pocket for the next 4 days. I'm going to have to modify my training. I'm going to get everything that I possibly can in. You talk about training on the road. It's possible. You can do burpees anywhere. You can do air squats anywhere. You can find something to grab onto and do some pull-ups. You can do something every day, which I know it's part of the street parking motto. What is it?
Better than nothing.
Better than nothing. Something is better than nothing.
Yep.
And there were times during the year that I had to have that mindset for like 2 or 3 days while I was at an event. Like, wake up a little earlier, go for a run, do some burpees, grab something heavy and do thrusters. But again, like, it comes back to that, to having the goal. Like, I knew what I wanted to achieve. And in order to achieve that, I was able to segment and delegate every other area of my life to accomplish that.
So that was at a obviously very extreme level.
Oh my gosh.
You were not on that path this year.
I'm not.
So how are you managing it now? Because people might think, okay, that's great that you bought some time for a year.
Yeah. Now what?
Like, now does your boss expect something different of you, or how do you maintain that? I'm trying to think through the average person and or the person who wants to get started.
Yeah.
While you had that great communication with your boss, would you actually physically go into your calendar and block it for times, or how would you really what was an easy way of communicating externally to your teammates that, hey, look, I got this, I got that, or whatever?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I'll tell you the 2 different ways I've managed that in my past. So with Podium, super small team. It was really easy to send a text message like, hey, here's when I'm unavailable. Here's when I am. Mostly that's I'm training from this time to this time, right? And then being in the CrossFit space, like I was pretty vocal in communicating with external partners and stuff too. I'm like, hey, like here's when I'm available. Let's schedule then to meet. And everybody was super flexible, especially if they understood the goals that I was working on. When I was at Lululemon, I definitely took the calendar approach, because right now I'm on a team of 5, 6. Then I was leading a team of 40 for the most part. And then on top of that, reporting to a regional manager who wasn't under the same roof, working with 8 store managers in my region on top of like other partners as well. So the calendar approach was absolutely necessary. And so I would physically go into my Outlook calendar and just block out the times that I was at the gym, or even like when I just knew I was going to need a few hours. For me, having some like decompressed time is important. And so I would block out time to where nobody could send me a calendar invite. I would put my phone on do not disturb, like all of it synced up. And so I think you have to like look at the team, look at your surroundings, what environment are you in, and what's the best way, again, communicate when you are and when you aren't available. And then for me, it's why. Like, if you just tell people I'm not available, maybe they get defensive. Maybe they're like, oh, well, are you too busy for me? But if you tell them why you need to take that downtime, or why you need to be at the gym, it doesn't have to be as a goal as big as the CrossFit Games. It could be like, hey, like I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s. Like, I want to be able to pick my grandkids up when I'm 80. Like, who doesn't want to be able to do that? You know, I think that every goal, as in CrossFit, everything is scalable. It's what's important to you. Do you want to lose weight? Do you want to get stronger? Do you want to be able to run with your kids when they're training for something? Do you want to go hiking, surfing, any of the above? There has to be a foundation of health and fitness. And so communicating that to people, what is it the thing that you want to achieve as a result of being healthy, mobile, and strong?
Yeah, I think the theme I'm hearing is that you need to protect yourself. You
Yeah.
need to protect your time. There's this, everyone's familiar. I've put this meme, any chance I get, I put this meme on someone's like LinkedIn post. And it is, I did some text over the oxygen mask instructions from on an airplane, because you got to put your mask on first before you can help
1000%.
others.
Yeah.
And that's what this comes down to, is that protecting your time, protecting yourself. And I think that's where this segues into why training is so important. And I think there's more and more documentation coming out about the fact that by making this time for yourself, you actually end up being able to work better, perform better at your job. Like you can, I know personally, I had this experience. I started a new job at an agency, and my first year there, I kind of just let them own me. I was like, look, I'm new. I'm really excited. I got this job.
I got to put in the work. I got to show them they made the right decision.
Right.
Yeah.
And then about 6 months in, I found myself, I put on some weight. I felt lethargic. I just didn't feel as good as I normally do. And so I started going to the gym on my lunch. But to go to the gym, shower, get back, it was like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I took the train to work, so I'd have to catch like a 5:15 train. So I was in the door at like 8. I'd disappear at noon. I'd come back around 1:30, and then I was out the door at 5 or like 5:10, because it was a short walk to the train. And I got pulled into my boss's office and was told that there is a perception, favorite / least favorite word.
Yeah.
There's a perception.
Perception is reality.
That I wasn't putting in the work.
Yeah.
And I frankly said, well, have I missed any deadlines? Well, no. Are the clients unhappy? No. Well, then what's the problem? Well, perception, blah, blah. And I'm like, but who cares? It's not like I'm getting my work done. And what I found was I was actually getting more work done when I started working out again than on the days I wasn't.
Yep.
So, and I want to make sure that I'm not in a silo here.
Not at all.
I mean, you feel the same way. You have seen that. Have you had times where you have kind of fallen off a little bit and you're like, I need to get back on it?
1,000%. I am like, like you said, this past year was an extreme, and it took a ton of communication, a ton of self-talk, a ton of just like staying in that space to be able to achieve that 1 year goal. And I say 1 year goal, it's something I've been essentially training for since 2013, or you could even say my whole life maybe. But since the games, I went from like the highest of highs to like, I crashed. Like, I think my adrenal system was taxed. My brain, the mental taxation. And so for about a month after the games, I didn't do anything. Like, I traveled, I went to see all my friends, I slept in.
Did you take a month off of work?
No, I didn't take a month off of work,
Okay.
but like from training, I didn't go to a gym for probably a month after the games. And for me, that's what I needed. Like, after all that work that we had put in, my body was screaming at me. It was telling me to slow down. It was telling me to calm down. And so I listened, and I did the things that I hadn't been able to do for up to that point that year, and just spent quality time with friends and family. And this past 6 months now since August and competing at the game, it's really been, I've noticed I'm having to relearn myself quite a bit, because I went from eating a very specific way to fuel training, going to bed at a certain time, waking up at a certain time, to segment around training, all of these things that now it's like not as necessary. But as I'm like getting back into a groove, especially coming off the holidays, the start of the new year, all those things, right? It's like, for me, training has been, fitness has been, health has been, movements, like since I was 2 years old. It's always been part of my life. And for me, if I don't get something in, I get actual anxiety about it. And so where I've really had to structure my days now is like, as much as do not like working out in the mornings, I have to work out in the morning, because if I don't just get up and get it done, then the rest of my day I'm thinking about my workout. And well, when am I going to go? And then it's a distraction. And so now as I'm moving into, I would say, a more relatable routine, it's like I'm going to bed at a certain time and then I'm waking up early so I can get at least an hour. That's like right now, that's like my minimum. Is like if I can get an hour in of some strength work, of some cardio work, of some movement, whether that's doing a CrossFit class or a lot of times I'm just doing stuff at my own, even in my apartment gym right now. Right now it's about just getting something in, so that I stay strong, I stay feeling good, I stay healthy, because you're right, it 1000% translates to work. But I relate to that situation that you're talking about. Man, at a previous company, that came up a lot. It's all about perception, right? And so it's at the end of the day, like, sure, it's easy to argue the deliverable aspect of it, but if anyone perceives your behavior a certain way, in those situations, I've always taken it upon myself to just like direct the conversation to that person with the problem. And there's even been times I've invited people to work out with me. I'm like, hey, like, why don't you take a break too and come work out with me? But it's not even as simple as that sometimes too. It's like I'm choosing to spend my lunch break working out versus going to a restaurant and eating lunch. And so there's a give and take to every single thing. And I think that there are people who, oh, well, I'm going to take a lunch break and I'm going to work out and then that's where you start to get in this like negative perception of things. But it's all about balance and sacrifice. Like if that's the thing that you choose during a lunch break, cool. Yeah. Like stick to your guns on that, communicate it with your boss. And then if people on your team want to complain to your boss about it, he knows what you're up to, and he knows, or she knows, kind of the intention behind it. But
well, let's just say I'm not there anymore, obviously. Yeah, well, and the book that I've referenced a couple times called Spark, now there's science. There's literally science
data
that says when you do something after a bout of physical activity, you are sharper, you are more focused. So actually, before we started today, we went for a walk.
Yeah, it was great.
Just nice, brisk, get outside, get your body moving. Because you are sharper, you are more focused, which goes back to all kinds of primal stuff that, you know, if you think about it, if you're being chased by a wild animal, how alert are you? You're pretty darn alert.
You're on flight mode at that
but
point.
Your senses are all firing.
System, yeah.
Everything is aware. You are taking in everything imaginable. So the fact that taking that time, people see this. I know I'm the most creative in the morning because that's when I push myself to work out.
Yeah.
Much like you, because otherwise all day I'm thinking about when am I going to squeeze it in. At that time, I found my most productive window was I could crank out so much stuff when I got back from my workout. One, because my actual body chemistry had changed being post-workout.
Yeah.
And two, one of the things that was interesting, they also talk about people with ADHD a lot of times seem to be procrastinators because they thrive in that stress, and that's when they can get things so much done. So they tend to put things off because when they get stressed, they do their best work, just because that's the way they're wired. But I knew I had a compressed timeline, so I had to be focused. I couldn't get into idle chit chat conversations and it was get shit done time.
Yeah,
and that was I loved it. So I think that's one of the big things I want to make sure people take away from this is that carving an hour out of your day to do whatever level of physical activity you need, taking that hour for yourself, be it in the morning, be it in the middle of the day, whatever, you will actually gain that time back.
1000%. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And
it's counterintuitive, but it's
absolutely,
facts.
Absolutely. And the thing, it's, I've said it a few times. My whole life fitness has really been like one of my top priorities my whole life. But that doesn't mean it has to be for everyone else. There could be people out there who've never started that fitness journey that are like, oh, well, Shea, you've been doing this your whole life. It's natural. And like, the thing that I have to say about that is like, it all comes down to like, what's the goal beyond that goal? And if you don't have a reason for doing something, it's going to be a lot harder to do it. And then how do you create like discipline and structure? The first 2 weeks are the hardest. Like, suck it up the first 2 weeks. Remind yourself of why you're doing this thing that you're doing. Even if it's just like, I'm going to wake up and go for a 30-minute walk for the next 2 weeks. do that thing, because like you said, just getting your body moving, you're going to make a better decision about what you eat. You're going to drink more water. You're going to have more clarity. It doesn't have to be anything extreme. It just has to be something. And then that choice will lead to a better choice, which will lead to another good choice. And then you start to see like major return over the course of time. But getting started is the hardest part. And then after that, it's discipline. Like make that choice to do the thing that you don't want to do sometimes. And the reward from that pays off. Every time. I
think making that choice gets easier the more you make that choice.
It does, because it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Once you do it for a certain amount of time, it's not even a choice anymore. Like training for the games, it wasn't a choice. It became not a choice. Like, yeah, there were moments that I had to remind myself, like, I chose this. I'm grateful to be doing this. Thank you, body, for like sticking together for the most part, not all the time. But most days it was just like, it was the thing that I had committed to doing, so I was doing it, and it was habit. It was just a habit.
Have you heard of the term "choose your hard"?
Yeah, I love it.
For those of you, there's a meme going around and an idea called "choose your hard," and it's basically getting up early, and early is relative to everyone. Getting up early to do a workout is hard, but you know what's harder is not being able to get out of bed, or having to take your blood pressure medicine every day, or having to take time off of work that you have to go see a doctor. Like the thing is hard. You're going to have something hard in your life
every day.
Nobody lives a quote easy
no
life.
matter what you see on social media.
Yes, exactly.
Nobody's life is easy.
No, you have to choose your hard. And by choosing to do things that are good for you, you can prevent that from getting into choosing to have to do the hard things that you don't have a choice to do, because otherwise it's game over.
Agreed. So choose your hard.
Okay. I think that's about it. I think we covered a lot. Really excited to see what people think of this. I hope nobody thinks that we're some type of fitness elites. Oh, you know what? For CrossFitters, let's ask you a couple more like speed round questions.
Oh, yeah, okay.
These were not on the list of questions that were approved in advance by your
Let's go.
Fran time.
Oh gosh. Honestly, I don't even know.
You don't remember the last time you did it? I don't remember
the last time I did Fran. We didn't do it in training once during the games.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a bust.
I want to say 2:15.
2 minutes and 15 seconds.
I think that was my best Fran time.
Wow. Okay. All right. Next, have you done Murph?
Yeah, I did Murph. My best Murph. We didn't do it last year because we were just coming off a semifinal. But the year before that, when that year I told you we were training hard to kill.
Yeah.
My time was like 47 minutes. In the 47 something.
And for the people who like to pick things apart, was that consecutive?
It was consecutive, and I was wearing
200,
a vest.
300, and a vest. Okay.
Consecutive, wearing a vest.
All right. Good. Just to dress, because that's the thing people like to ask afterwards.
And I don't like running, so I just want to like make that clear. Running to me is the hard choice, and I had to choose to do the hard thing a lot that year and this past year, but it's part of it.
Okay. All right. I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. And thank you to Olympian Meetings. And we will see you next month with our next guest. Who that is, I don't know. It's a surprise. I'm in marketing. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining Return on Wellness. For help integrating these ideas, please scan the QR code. We sincerely hope you join us for our next episode of Return on Wellness.